Hi. For years, The Biggest Loser was a national phenomenon. It was more than a TV show. It was a promise. The promise that with enough hard work, you could conquer obesity, change your life, and become an inspiration to millions of people that they too could put in the hard work to be healthier and happier. But as we've learned more about what went on behind the scenes, we have to ask, was this show truly inspirational? Or was it just another form of sanctioned cruelty? Today, we're diving into the rise, fall, and the backlash of The Biggest Loser. After a deep dive of the show's history, the documentary, Jillian's podcast, and a rewatch of season 15, it's clear to me that the show was more evil than good. Though I will say there were some positive outcomes to the show in total, I would say the negatives far outweigh the positives. So let's unpack the reality of the cultural phenomenon The Biggest Loser. The rise. The Biggest Loser began at its 18 seasons in 2004, at a time when bullying on a large scale on national television was much more socially acceptable. The Biggest Loser came with this brand new, bright idea to have people who struggled to lose weight come on a TV show and lose it in way of a competition. This idea was in theory to help people. The trainers that were primarily on the show were Jillian and Bob, who were on most of the seasons of The Biggest Loser, but probably should have been kicked off within the first few.
Here, your neck breaks in half.
I'm gonna break your legs and beat you with them. Now get up.
To say the least, they were very intense, and that's what drew people in to watch. Season 1 of The Biggest Loser was hosted by Caroline Rhea, a stand-up comedian.
Her baby, she gained 80 pounds. Oh, don't think I wasn't photographed next to her every day.
Caroline Rhea, the stand-up comedian, obviously perfect choice to host this show since it's supposed to be about helping people and not making fun of them, right? Not correct. They make fun of people all the time. Caroline Rhea originally spoke of the show similarly to a soap opera, which is kind of ironic since this isn't a fucking soap opera. She was a very interesting choice for actually hosting, but she did only last for 3 seasons. And then it switched to Alison Sweeney.
Sammy, I told you I could just use the measurements from last time.
Yeah, well, I can't.
Oh, come on, you're not even showing. And by the way, I like that dress even more than the last one.
Well, I'm glad.
This, is the last time I'm gonna be a bridesmaid though, right?
And it better be.
Alison Sweeney was on Days of Our Lives, which is the craziest soap opera in the entire world. It has like a bajillion seasons, and it's horrible. It looks like it's filmed on an iPhone, and which some things can look good filmed on an iPhone, but not that. In the early seasons, The Biggest Loser quickly came to popularity. And this is for a variety of reasons. People watched it because it was a sense of inspiration, or it was just straight up good entertainment. And let's be honest, watching shows where people are struggling to get through some physical challenge is very fascinating for people. Think about Survivor. That has 40 seasons now? And Jeff Probst hasn't aged a day because he's got money from how successful that show is. Homeboy's raking it in, to say the least. The difference from what I see as Survivor and The Biggest Loser is some more scripted abuse in The Biggest Loser. If you haven't seen The Biggest Loser, the show kind of goes like this. You start off with 15 contestants all struggling to lose weight. They go on the show in order to take back their life. And as a result, they get pushed to physical limits that you would never expect someone to get pushed to, forcibly pushed to talk about very personal issues that don't need to be shown on live TV and have nothing to do with losing weight, all to get on the scale at the end of the week, which it never really was a week, to show how all of this work you've been putting in was actually worth it. It wasn't just grueling workouts every single day, there were also challenges embedded within the show. And this was to invoke more of an entertainment factor. And the challenges were frequently egregiously offensive. It was more so a public shaming tactic disguised as a competition. In some of the really early seasons, you see some of the most disturbing challenges where contestants are forced to hold food in their mouths while stacking it up and almost as if they're trying not to eat it. But these temptation challenges, like they call it, are to get $5,000. They're to see your family for the first time in several weeks. It's not a real temptation because in real life, no one is saying you can or can't eat a specific food in order to win money. These challenges are almost to insinuate that people who are overweight can't control themselves, which is inherently not true and honestly just offensive. The documentary that came out on Netflix kind of leads you to believe that these challenges that were so offensive stopped after the early seasons, but they continued. Even in season 15, which is one of the last seasons that came out of The Biggest Loser, there's still some of these challenges. In season 15, they actually had a Halloween themed challenge where contestants had to run and grab pumpkins that either had candy, money, or immunity in it. They continuously tell people how many calories they're eating with each candy bar. Also just setting people back on their goals, because these are very calorie dense things that they're having to eat. But also this isn't a real life thing that they would be put in front of where money is at stake, when a lot of these people some people had to give up their jobs or quit or be fired in order to go on this show. They're struggling for money. It's sad to force people to eat food in order to make the show more entertaining, and what if they gain weight again? It's just sad. The terrible logistics of this game honestly just make me sick, because weight loss is primarily calorie dependent, and you're forcing people to eat candy and telling them they need to work out 8 more hours in order to burn that off. And if they don't eat the candy, your teammates are going to be mad at you because you're no longer contributing to the calorie consumption. Overall, it just creates a toxic environment for everyone involved on the show as contestants. Games like this were developed by producers like JD Roth, who prided himself on finding people who were overweight and unhappy, as he thought they would make the best television.
We were looking for people who were overweight and unhappy. And once we tapped into finding those contestants, we realized there were literally millions.
This pillar of finding people unhappy is almost one of the most important parts of how The Biggest Loser frames its show. It preys on people's emotions. Throughout the season I watched, this fully held up. As the trainers in season 15, Jillian Michaels, Bob Harper, and Dolvette Kinsey cosplayed therapists in order to get more juicy television. You had people whose marriages were crumbling, people who couldn't play with their kids anymore, and people who felt like they were a prisoner within their own bodies. And honestly, a lot of abuse stories as well. During my watch of season 15, some of the stories were repeatedly told almost every single episode. Some of the more frequent ones were one of the contestants, David, lost his wife, and honestly, it's a tragic story. I teared up several times having to listen to it, but it's played over and over and over again on the show, using his tragedy as entertainment.
And I was married for about 6 months, and I woke up in the middle of the night with my wife having a seizure and knowing in a split moment that life was never going to be the same.
Thanksgiving is always a very special time for our family, and it's right around the time of my first wife's birthday.
My first wife's name was Andrea. We had been married 6 months, and we found out she had cancer. And I spent 10 years caring for a sick wife. We had 2 young girls together, and I lost a wife to cancer. So
when I looked across at them ladies, I saw the face of my wife.
my first wife's name was Andrea. I was 20.
Another one of the stories told, which just kind of made me uncomfortable, was Jennifer's daughter. Jennifer's daughter is brought up as being an overweight child.
I see myself in you in so many ways, you know? A parent who truly loves their kid. Your relationship with your daughter. I know you feel bad about that. Tell me why.
She's not healthy. She's about 70 pounds overweight. It's like she needs help, but I couldn't give her the help because I couldn't help myself. It's like I tried for years, it's just I gave up on myself and I just felt like a failure.
And I think childhood obesity is an important thing to discuss, but making a 9-year-old little girl go on TV and talk about losing weight is not an appropriate thing for a little girl to have to do. It also seems like it's sprung upon her. In several of the clips, she gets read as if she's embarrassed, and I'm not going to show any just because I want to respect her privacy, even though it was so long ago. I just think it was overall an inappropriate thing to include within the show. And her child did not need to be exploited for the sake of a TV show that she was on. One of the most frustrating moments in this entire season is when Tanya tells Dolvette, her trainer, that she was abused by her mother. And Dolvette proceeds to tell her to write a letter fully forgiving her mother. Doesn't understand the situation, doesn't listen to it in full, hears one little snippet of it and says, you need to forgive her.
You told me your mom abused you. What do you mean? What happened?
My mother was heavily addicted to drugs, and she was very physical. And She had me when she was 15, and I was growing into myself, so there was always this need for her to mess with my face, hit me in my face, hit me in my mouth, hit me in my nose. If someone complimented me, she would hit me in the face. And that's basically how I had to live my life.
You still mad at her? You still pissed?
I'm pissed at my entire family because I told them about the abuse. They knew what was going on, but nobody would save me. I never want anyone to feel like I felt devalued, worthless. I never want anyone to feel that way.
You can't be successful in life or here if you keep holding on to that anger. You gotta let that go. And the only way you're gonna let that go, Tanya, is forgiving them. I want you to write 2 letters for me. The first letter you write, I want you to write to your mother. And then the second letter, I want you to write to your family. I need you to put down on paper how you feel, what they make you feel, how they make you feel every day. But at the end of those letters, I want you to get to a place of telling them you forgive them.
It starts with me.
I'm sorry. In what situation do you have the right to tell someone that you just met to forgive someone for something you don't even know anything about? It is your own personal decision to do that for yourself. And Tanya does seem thankful for this whole situation, but if I was in her position, I would be very upset and not take that nearly as well. For all the stories that are hard to hear or improperly managed, you also get stories like Fernanda, who finally gets to fuck her husband again.
No more hiding myself from my husband. I can get dressed up and look sexy.
Which doesn't feel personal or like an invasion of privacy of Fernanda's life. Or does it? Despite some of the show's glaring faults in the mid-2000s, it became a cultural juggernaut. It wasn't just a show anymore, it was a lifestyle brand. There were home workout DVDs, TV show spin-offs, books, articles, new websites uploaded, including one that they continuously promote all throughout season 15. Unfortunately, that website is no longer published, or I would have definitely included some of the information, but they include things about how eating at Subway is so healthy, which, is it? And there actually was even a Wii video game, and can we just talk about that for a second? Because why are we making something about weight loss targeted towards children? Maybe let's not do that. Maybe? Despite all of this, we also saw positives throughout every single season, including season 15, where we saw contestants like Jay, who started off in the 400s and ended up in the 200s, feeling a lot more healthy and even having a really great moment with his family, showing off his transformation, which was honestly a really cute moment. The family reunions are honestly adorable.
Hey, come here, Trin. Where'd the beard go? What do you think?
Hey, baby.
Hi.
You look beautiful. Does Daddy look the same? I don't.
Don't at all.
I remember that dream you told me about. Did it look like this? I thought so.
Also, I just want to point one thing out. Hap is one of the contestants in season 15 on The Biggest Loser, and he misses his wife's birth to be on this TV show.
For the first time, I'm going to call my wife and meet my son Ripkin through FaceTime. Hello?
Is that Daddy? That's the newbie.
Oh, yeah.
Can you see him?
Oh.
It's the first time Daddy gets to see him.
I can't wait to get home to hold him.
There is no situation in which I would be chill with that. She's a better woman than I, because no thank you. There also were some other moments of genuine connection, specifically in season 15, one of the moments where Bob Harper and one of the contestants, Bobby, have a really deep discussion where Bob actually comes out on the TV show because Bobby himself is struggling to come out to his father.
I totally understand what you're talking about. I totally get it. Like, you know, like, I'm gay. I knew a very long time ago that I was gay, and the family that I grew up around, you know, was very much the same in the way that, like, you know, there was so much repression there. I think that, like, when I came out when I was 17 years old, it was one of those kind of things where I realized that there was going to be so many obstacles. But being gay doesn't mean being weak, and being gay doesn't mean that you are less than anybody else.
And Bobby does come out to his dad, and it goes really well. But if it didn't, I think this would have had a very different taste and not been necessarily a positive for the show. In theory, the show gave people a stage to win in one area, to feel empowered and deal with all the other stuff in their life. Even Jillian Michaels, despite her reputation, gives some solid advice occasionally, including her take on negative behaviors, where she continuously says don't dwell on them, which I really think is a good thing to say. Specifically in season 15, one of the contestants struggles with a binge eating night, and they say don't dwell on it, move past it, because if you dwell on it, you're gonna keep doing it. And I think that's a really great mantra to take into your whole life, where you don't dwell on things that you've made mistakes in, because if you keep dwelling on it, you're never going to move past it. The finale of the show is really what made it rise to popularity. You see these drastic before and after pictures as people burst through their previous self. And you see audience members talking about how they themselves have lost weight because of the inspiration of the show. And all the contestants seem very happy as they're out there on their finale stage because they took back their life. So, all sunshine and roses. Unfortunately, no. The fall. The show was, at its heart, a game show. Fully designed for ratings, often prioritizing drama over health. The trainers, especially Jillian, were seen as terrifying tyrants who screamed at contestants to get results. Jillian even admits on her podcast that she'd bring out the sledgehammer if she thought it would make people do something. She also makes a comment that she would prep some people before yelling at them if they let her know that they were uncomfortable with her yelling at them. She would literally tell some people, I'm going to yell at you now. It's just for TV. Go with it. So not all of it was real, but also staging abuse for a TV show isn't necessarily a TV show I would still want to be part of, so I question the tactics there. While in the making of this video, I actually decided to talk to a specialist in fitness and nutrition because despite me liking to talk my shit, I actually don't always know what I'm talking about.
Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay. I'm a current exercise and nutrition PhD student at ASU. My background includes a bachelor's of nutrition and a master's degree in exercise science. I've also worked as a coach in various different settings, one being CrossFit and strength and conditioning, as well as a cross-country coach. I specialize in both strength and conditioning side of things as well as endurance sports.
As a trainer, what do you see as the best motivation for people? Or like what techniques would you use?
I think have them consider their why gym. So when you're outside of the gym, think about why you want to be there. And then also understand that a lot of times people who are consistent in the gym have developed discipline over motivation. Most people that are there, at least at some point, aren't there because they're excited and motivated to be there. They have some goal that they're trying to reach and they're disciplined to do it. So sticking to your goals is important to you. Find ways to make sure you're getting them done, even if it doesn't sound super fun or exciting to you in that moment. So maybe go earlier in the morning just to get it out of the way, and then you'll feel better about it. It should never feel like a chore. So if it does, then you need to reconsider switching something up in your schedule.
Well, screaming probably wasn't the best way to motivate people, but what about other parts of the show? There's actually one scene in season 15 known as a very controversial part where Jillian's team is actually punished because she gave them stackers, which are caffeine pills. Her team is punished, and honestly, she makes some snarky remarks. Watching the show, I was confused because the way she says it, it's as though they were having tons of caffeine, and instead of having caffeine, they have caffeine pills. But I also don't know the difference between caffeine and caffeine pills and how actually that affects people. After the show aired, it actually seemed like it was much more common practice than just that one time Jillian got caught. But this has never actually been proven. These stackers were actually against the show's dedicated doctor's orders, Dr. Huizinga, who strongly advised against it.
Before you all step on the scale, there is something important that needs to be addressed. Last week, Jillian broke the rules and gave caffeine supplements to each member of her team without the doctor's permission. Jillian, before we move on, do you have something you want to say about what's happened?
I stand by my opinion. A caffeine supplement is significantly healthier than unlimited amounts of coffee. My only regret is that my team, they are the ones suffering the consequences of my professional opinion.
On season 15, they really made a spectacle of this entire thing happening, which was a truly weird way of handling it, and I think it could have been done in a very different way that didn't punish contestants for something that they probably were just told to do by someone else. What are your thoughts on caffeine supplements for a boost in energy for a workout?
I don't see the problem with using caffeine. I mean, to an extent, you need to limit how many milligrams you're consuming each day. Again, don't take 500 milligrams to go work out. You need to keep your heart healthy, and taking more than a couple hundred can cause negative effects on your heart.
In regards to nutrition, some contestants after leaving the show actually reported that they were only eating 800 calories a day and working out for 4 to 6 hours in a day, and sometimes even while injured. What are your thoughts on calorie deficits, and what would you consider too low of a calorie deficit?
There's so many things that can come alongside of eating even less than 1,200 calories a day. I mean, since I'm someone focusing on female exercise physiology, so I am going to dive a little bit into the science behind the harms that this can do. The first thing is that a super low energy intake can suppress your HPO axis, which is essentially the axis between your brain all the way down to your ovaries, regarding hormones and controlling your menstrual cycle. So without being too specific, it's a chain of events that one hormone will eventually lead to a decrease in your luteinizing hormone and your follicle stimulating hormone, which also affects estrogen levels. So you can have amenorrhea, which is loss of your period, which will affect your bone density as well as fertility issues possibly. And then also having a lower body fat percentage. Once you do obtain a low body fat percentage from having such a low caloric intake, that will exacerbate your hormonal damage as well. And then from a general standpoint, metabolic hormones that are affected for both sexes, your cortisol, and then your thyroid hormones, it's just bad overall. And then having consistent high levels of cortisol circulating the body will definitely impact the fat that's stored on. So your body will essentially be in starvation mode, and you'll be stressed. You won't sleep well. A negative consequence all in one giant bubble. Like, you don't want to undereat to that level. I would recommend, depending on your weight, it's very individualized, starting with a couple hundred per day, if anything. And you really never want to get below 1,500 for the average female. But again, it's very interpersonal. I would say I recommend working with a dietitian to figure out your specific nutrient needs, but speaking in the 800 is just absurd. Don't listen to anybody who ever tells you to eat 800 calories.
What is the maximum amount of exercise one should do in a day?
I think the main thing to think about is your experience, one. So if you're someone who lifts once or twice a day, or you go for 1 or 2 runs a day, if you're someone who's been doing that for years and months, you know what your body can handle. If you have never exercised before and you're going out and trying to run 20 miles or lift in the gym for a few hours, that is not a good idea. The main thing that I would say needs to be considered is your sleep. Once your sleep starts getting affected, as well as just your overall performance, your fatigue, like mentally and physically, or if you notice any like ongoing soreness and stuff, it's kind of a sign, or injuries, it's kind of a sign you might be overtraining. There's really not a frame of overtraining. It's more of a under recovery thing, if you want to look at it from that perspective. And if you want to follow general guidelines, I think it's like 100 and something minutes per week of moderate exercise is considered like healthy. but it's very interpersonal. Also, it's important to tie back to what I mentioned about recovering and sleeping. If you're taking caffeine too late at night, pre-workout after you get off work, you're going to bed in a few hours, you're likely going to have poor sleep quality. Even if you feel like you slept 8 hours, your quality of sleep is going to be reduced and then therefore under recovery.
After hearing all this from a specialist, it's hard to understand why Dr. Huizenga didn't choose to report this himself until after the show. Throughout the documentary, he very much detaches himself from the situation, but it's hard to understand how a doctor couldn't have seen the dangers that all these people were being put in. Within the documentary, Dr. Huizenga actually claims he wasn't alerted of the challenges beforehand.
So when they do a physical challenge that puts people in harm's way, that's where I have to step in. There were times, unfortunately, though, that challenges were done that I didn't see or hear about, which was the main hang-up to making it a much safer environment. You can't have a show based on weight loss that's safe.
Leading to dangerous situations like Tracy.
I'm running and my legs feel really heavy, like lead. My legs are so weak.
Got you. Come on, stand up.
What's happening right then is my body's starting to shut down. I might not make it, but I told myself, I'm gonna do it because I want to change my life.
I'd finished and I'd looked back and Tracy hadn't made it yet. And the only thing that came through my mind was, we gotta be a team here and help her finish.
She collapsed right there on the other side of the finish line, and that's when I realized there was a real problem.
Patient not responding. We need a medevac immediately.
It's hard to believe he was so detached from all of the contestants in these different ways, as he has one-on-ones with them that are put on the TV show directly. And within these one-on-ones, they can definitely be hard to watch. Sometimes they show videos of other people who didn't get on the show, who are close to dying because of their weight, and saying you must lose weight for this person or you will end up like this person if you don't lose weight. Also frequently essentially saying you will die if you don't lose weight, which isn't necessarily always the case. Some of the people that go on the show aren't morbidly obese, and so it's hard to just say lose weight. Also, losing weight isn't necessarily the answer. It's about your overall health. Overall, these clips of Dr. Huizenga within the show I also think is damaging to the discussion around weight loss. Do you think a doctor would be able to realize if someone was losing weight at such a rapid pace that they were not following an appropriate diet?
I think any doctor who cares about his patients should be able to see that happening and then understand that maybe, hey, there's something going on with the amount they're exercising or eating, like something's not right. Because if you're losing weight that fast, even if you are very obese, you're likely losing a lot of lean mass or even bone mass as well. So red flags all around, and I think a good practicing doctor absolutely should recognize and be able to recognize that.
What would be an appropriate amount of weight to lose or percentage of weight to lose if you're on a weight loss journey?
So if you're obese, the general guideline for safe weight loss is about 1 to 2 pounds per week. You don't really want to go over that. Going back to all the things I mentioned before, if you lose weight very rapidly, the more weight you lose rapidly, the more likely it is that a greater percentage of it is from lean mass, aka your muscle, which essentially is your metabolism, and very important, and as well as your bone mass as well. So I would say it's a long process, and don't rush it because you're going to run into worse health outcomes in the future.
Throughout the show, humiliation is also used as a primary tactic. Contestants were assigned numbers on their shirts that they have to wear in order to show what their original weight was. And during weigh-ins in the first part of the season, they must take off their shirts, and women are in sports bras and men fully undressed on top. And they frequently show slow motion videos of people who are on the show trying to be what they consider better for themselves, and yet their previous self is consistently humiliated and shown as someone who is unworthy, which is not the case. and should have never been the case for these people being on the show. After halfway through the season, people finally get their dignity back and are actually able to wear shirts while they get on the scale while everyone stares at them. As I mentioned earlier, people are also frequently exploited for their emotions. One of the most disturbing examples, as I mentioned earlier, was Jennifer and her daughter. There's such a continuous focus of this young girl and her weight, as if to say, don't let your daughter become like you. This child is shown several times throughout the show, alongside 3 other children who in season 14 were child ambassadors for beating childhood obesity. While fighting childhood obesity is a great cause, thanks Michelle Obama,
children born today will be accustomed to eating healthy food during the school day. So for them, the norm will be fruits and vegetables and not chips and candy.
even though my lunches at school sucked ass. Whatever. But kids who are going through this journey of trying to be healthy and more active shouldn't have to do this on such a public stage. And having this broadcasted to so many people can definitely be detrimental to development. Essentially, is there a difference between a child trying to get healthier and losing weight versus an adult?
Everyone's body is programmed to work the same way, but you're going to go through phases as a child where you're considered overweight by the BMI scale or other scales. Or a lot of children are, but they're not at their official or end height. So it's hard to tell. I mean, they're in this period of growth that's kind of has some wiggle room, but essentially I would say it's not unsafe for children to have a fitness routine or a nutrition routine, but I don't think mentally it's as safe to teach them about that, especially in the ways that people are typically taught about being healthy, because you can see healthy individuals who are classified as obese. So putting that into a child's head can set them up for more harm in the future if they don't fully understand what they're being told, and if they're kind of being fed negative body image issues or feeling poorly about themselves because they're told they're overweight and they need to exercise more.
When finishing up the season 15 finale, the most talked about person in this episode is Rachel. I would love to say it's because she's a baller, because she is. Literally in so many of the challenges, she's beating out everyone. She works so hard and she's so dedicated.
God. Oh my God. God.
And here we come! The winner of this Biggest Loser triathlon at 1 hour and 32 minutes!
Oh my God.
Good job.
Thank you, Allie.
Oh
my gosh.
But in the finale, you see another side. On her season finale night, she actually comes out of the back room, and honestly, she looks unwell. She's very thin at this point. She's lost 59.6% of her body weight, ending the show at 105 pounds. From her last day on the show, it's very apparent that she lost a significant amount of muscle, which brings to light one of the most fatal flaws of The Biggest Loser: how they calculate a winner.
I think weighing yourself on a regular scale is kind of sometimes counterintuitive when you're starting a weight loss journey, especially if you're doing resistance training, because oftentimes people will be losing fat and gaining muscle and they won't see huge shift in the scale. I think the best way is to not think about your weight loss in terms of absolute numbers. If you want to be quantitative about it, maybe do measurements around the waist, around the hips, around the thighs with a measuring tape. And then if you have access to something like a BIA scale or something that goes more in depth, looking at your body composition is probably the absolute best way to go about it, because then you can see changes in your lean mass and then changes in your fat mass versus just your pounds or your kilograms on a scale, which is not nearly as helpful in my opinion.
Because of the season 15 finale, Jillian Michaels talks about how she was horrified, and she actually left the show because she felt complicit in how it was handled. Rachel later shared that the comments after the finale were incredibly hurtful and drastically affected her self-esteem. She went to a winner to being a target of public criticism overnight. Overall, how the show was built was inherently flawed and didn't support health. It supported skinny was health. which is not correct. Even if behind the scenes, Bob Harper and the producers want to say otherwise, that they talked about health and they talked about all the food choices that they needed to make, that was not what happened in the show, and that's not how the show chose a winner. The show portrayed that you need to work out till you can't anymore, till you're falling and throwing up on the treadmill. You have no limits, take no breaks. Eat Subway for some reason.
Wakey, wakey, rise and shine, boys. It's breakfast time. I brought you your Subway. Here is your steak, egg white, and cheese breakfast sandwich.
That looks delicious.
Jay, do you want your Fresh Fit breakfast sandwich?
Absolutely.
What's great about Subway is that they have 3 Fresh Fit breakfast sandwiches, all under 200 calories to choose from.
That's so good.
So good.
Victory never tasted so sweet.
And if you do all of this, all will be well, and you'll lose 30 pounds in a week. But you won't, because that's not real, nor is it healthy. In 2016, the show seemed to reach its end. Jillian publicly left 2 seasons before, and then nothing until 2020, when an updated version of the show came out with Bob Harper as the host. He went around on a media frenzy, making a big stink about how this season would about being healthy and not just skinny. But The Biggest Loser could not hold on to what it once was, and with that, the show came to an end. The show is a game, and in a game there are winners and losers. Unfortunately, in this game, some of the biggest losers were the ones who had to deal with long-term effects once the cameras stopped rolling. The Backlash. The Biggest Loser in its final years and in recent months has received a substantial amount of backlash. And this backlash comes from experts, news articles, journalists, previous contestants, and Netflix. In August 2025, a documentary came out about the rise and fall of The Biggest Loser. In this documentary, it brought out some of the big named people, including Dr. Huizinga, the show's doctor, Bob Harper, the producers like J.D. Roth. Noticeably, Jillian Michaels was not in the documentary. This documentary showed me a few things. One, Netflix kind of struggles taking a stance, because I felt like this didn't say it was good or bad. And just to be clear, I'm saying The Biggest Loser's bad. I think one of the most hard things to watch in this is no one really took responsibility for the things that went wrong. Bob Harper yelled at contestants, pushed people to talk about emotional issues in front of camera, and pushed negative habits on people. Bob Harper also stated that Dr. Huizinga had a god complex, which I think is really interesting coming from someone who is not a doctor, to say a doctor has a god complex for making him do things that are healthier for contestants. And Dr. Huizinga, I do want to say that I don't think he's a bad person. I think he should have stepped forward earlier than he did.
I have to take some of the responsibility for that, because I guess if I protested louder, I should have maybe quit the show. And and I was torn every year.
I was gonna say, did you ever actually consider quitting the show?
I told them every year I was gonna quit unless A, B, C, and D were done, and they would go back and forth and back and forth.
What ultimately kept you around?
Seeing the people at the end of the show crying that I've never felt this good, I've never looked this good, and hoping that we could get them into a system when they left the show that could perpetuate this approach.
Like I mentioned, Jillian Michaels was not in the documentary. And after watching several of her podcasts, I feel like I understand why. It's because she said everything she wants to say. Jillian has made several podcasts talking about everything from The Biggest Loser. She brings on several previous contestants discussing their relationship with the show, and she is very critical of how the show was run. But her continuous support for her training tactics honestly just rubbed me the wrong way. And I wouldn't say is necessarily appropriate.
In all transparency, the screaming of the last chance workout was totally staged. Well, however, when I would scream for real, right, you would know it. Right. And I absolutely would. There'd be a bag of tools, and I would try different ones. If I felt some resistance, I would try this one, I'd try that one, I'd try this one, and when it didn't work, I would get out the sledgehammer. Oh my gosh. And you guys would get pounded. Oh, and it depended on the contestant. When that technique was used, the worst one I think ever, I'll never forget, was Shay. And I think that was season 7. And for anybody who's familiar with the show, Shay was the biggest female ever on the show, like right around 500 pounds. And I could not even get her to get on the step mill for 15 seconds, and it was week 1, and the percentages were against her, because it's a percentage of body weight. And man, I almost threw her through a wall. It was the end of that first day, and Bob wanted to run in and virtue signal. And I tossed that woman through the wall, and I was like, I swear to God, I will kill you, Cassius! But she ended up doing it. Mm-hmm. And she, the next morning, she's like, I want you to know I got back on the stairs that night, and I did 10 more. However, like I said, it doesn't always work out. I wasn't the right trainer for everybody. A percentage of people did not succeed.
Danny, one of the previous contestants, actually joins Jillian on the podcast and talks about how she still weighs herself every single day because of what the show taught her, and she needs to be in check with her weight. But having a habit where you're so obsessed with your weight is so unhealthy. Jillian also admits to not being the best trainer for everyone, and I would argue borderline abuse isn't the best training for most. And that's what I would say this is similar to. Jillian actually discusses what her model of training is based off of, based on her experience with her martial arts teacher. She explains a situation of where she was pushed into a corner and had to beat her way out, where she was repeatedly beaten up by others around her.
Nobody saw me when I was standing in your shoes when you were on Biggest Loser. But it was my martial arts instructor beating the shit out of me. And I was like, I've told this story a million times. There's the time when I broke the 2 words with a psychic, I thought I couldn't do it. There's the time he kicked me through the wall of the studio and was like, I swear to God, get up and fight out of that corner or I will break every rib in your body. And I got up and I fought my way out of the corner. There's the time he had everybody in the studio kick my ass. And the reality is that you survive it. And he's like, this is life. Yes. Life does not stop punching you. So you can sit there and you can cry and you can be a victim about it, or you can figure out how to get up and get out of the corner. Yeah. And I would beat your asses. I would beat your asses in the hopes that even in the moment, if you're like, she's victimizing me, ultimately you would be left with the holy shit, I just ran a mile.
But it's towing the line of pushing your physical limits and abuse. Although Jillian is not someone I like at all, she is really relatively blunt and honest about her opinions. She even pulls in data from her own results on The Biggest Loser, saying there was only a 35% success rate on The Biggest Loser in total, meaning 65% of her contestants did gain back the weight. But she also does blame all of this on the individuals and not dealing with their baggage. So I don't know how much you can take as actual results from Jillian Michaels. After the show's completion, some articles also came out about how this actually affected some of the contestants' metabolism due to the tactics on The Biggest Loser. Based on some of the tactics that we've talked about, so like cutting weight, and some of these people are working out 4 to 8 hours in every single day, can this affect your metabolism and at what rate?
Yes, definitely. Like I mentioned before, especially for females, it's like a cascading event for all of your hormones. But one thing for both sexes that I really want to make a note of is the impact on lean mass. So when you're cutting a lot of calories and a lot of energy quickly, and if you're not heavily prioritizing protein, you're going to be losing quite a bit of weight from your lean mass, aka muscle, aka your metabolism. But yeah, that's just a no-no. So I don't even know like how else to frame that.
Can this be like essentially like fixed if you go back to a normal diet?
I think after a period of time, you can permanently damage certain systems in your body. Like if you lose so much bone density as a female, you're way more prone to fractures and falls, especially when you get older. But like once you reach menopause, it's hard to maintain bone density, especially if you're not resistance trained. No, I don't do a lot of delving into the male side of things, but I know for a fact it can be really harmful for females. But that's not to say if you diet harmfully for a few years, like you're screwed. That's not the case. I mean, there's always room for improvement. And I think if you prioritize putting lean mass on your body at any stage in life, there's room for recovery.
Jillian Michaels also made a very bold claim that nutritionists are being paid by the media in order to say unhealthy food is okay and being overweight is okay. This is all being contested greatly with a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo, so I won't get too deep into it. Have you heard of or have any of your classes talked about claims nutritionists are being paid off on Wall Street to say being a higher weight is okay or consuming unhealthy foods is okay?
I've not heard that or seen that people are being paid off. One thing I want to note though is the wording of the sentence using nutritionists. If these nutritionists are saying X, Y, and Z, one thing I want to make note of though is if you ever hear someone or see someone say that they're a nutritionist and not a registered dietitian, they lack a lot of credibility, because even yourself, anyone can say they're a nutritionist. It doesn't require any credentials or education. So influencers can claim they're nutritionists, etc., but the most credible and accurate people to offer nutrition advice are registered dietitians. Regardless of if they're being paid off or not, I do find some truth in to say that being overweight is okay to an extent, because I think being overweight is often classified using the BMI scale, which I very much don't agree with. I mean, you can have someone who is 5'5" and weighs 145 pounds that has a very high percentage of lean muscle mass, and then you can have someone who's 5'5", 145 pounds, very little muscle mass, and a high percentage of body fat. They look very different, but on the scale and their BMI is the exact same. And I do think that eating unhealthy foods is also okay and definitely can be a good thing, because I think everything in moderation is a good rule to follow, and you shouldn't live so strictly that you don't ever get to enjoy the food that you're eating. But also there are healthy foods that should be enjoyable to you also. So if eating healthy to you seems like you're only eating gross foods, then you should reevaluate the foods that you have tried and the foods that are on your plate and on your menu.
Speaking of legal mumbo jumbo, you know the documentary that came out? Well, Jillian Michaels is also claiming she will be suing Netflix because of it. Or she told TMZ she'll be pursuing legal action. This is to refute a bunch of allegations within the Netflix documentary. Some of the things she's looking to refute are the allegations that caffeine pills were fully banned on the show, and then she publicly shared some emails with producers about this. She also refuted the claim about the diet restriction and showed correspondence 1,600 calorie diets instead. While most of the contestants seem relatively unhappy with their experience on the show, some are still very happy with results, saying it was the best thing that ever happened to them and Biggest Loser changed their life.
To be able to see what your body can do is, as an obese person, is incredible. It was my greatest honor to push myself in that way. And at the time where I was physically, emotionally, clinically depressed, I wasn't able to do that without that community and without the help of you, of course, and Bob. But at the same time, I mean, to watch a 500-pound man jog on a treadmill, Arthur, I know you remember that moment. That was like day 10 or something. He was sobbing. He collapsed in tears. So whoever's watching this, I know you all know this because everybody loves Jillian and we know that. But what your body is capable of as an obese person is unbelievable. The human body is unbelievable. And that's what I hold on to every single day.
But I will say, it's hard to be proud of what you've actually done when continuously this show just promotes the humiliation you went through. The show's legacy is complicated. It inspired many people to start their fitness journeys, with those audience members finally losing the weight. But it did so by perpetuating a toxic cycle of shame, humiliation, and unsustainable weight loss. It was a spectacular drama, but the human cost was so often overlooked. During my talk with Lindsay, we also discussed the most sustainable and healthy way to lose weight. So I wanted to include that information here.
Best way is the way that's fun and enjoyable for you. Again, it should never feel like a chore. It should never feel like the hardest thing in the world or take over your work or your relationship or your family life. Something that isn't overtaking your life is the best way to go about it. From a bias perspective, I always think resistance training, at least part of the time, is very important, and prioritizing your protein. Say to start small and to set realistic goals for yourself. So if you set a goal that I want to have a 6-pack by next week, that's not going to happen. So be realistic with yourself and start small too. So if you're not someone who goes to the gym consistently every day or even every week, don't try to push it too hard too soon. You'll crash and burn. Try getting in there once a week, and then do something that's fun for you. So you don't have to follow a bro split or do what you see other people or influencers doing. Just do something that sounds fun to you, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Well, what do you think about The Biggest Loser? Because I think it's kind of fucked. I hope you learned something today, and bye. Amazing. Okay, thank you. You did so good.
Of course. Thank you.
Scratch all that shit I just said. Actually, who said that? That was crazy.